delegation from Lesotho is still here. I want them to pass my regards to the former Prime Minister, Moketsi Majoro, who's my personal friend and was the head of delegation for the observer mission for the Somaliland election. Tell him his friend from Nairobi says hi. Honorable Speaker, I wanted to comment on the statement that has been brought by the Senator for Narok, the Honorable Edama Olekina, regarding the status of the farmers in Narok who are currently looking at or staring at very serious losses, Honorable Speaker, that we have undertaken as a country, or we at least pretend to undertake, that we will take care of our farmers, Honorable Speaker. And when we do something on one side, we seem to take with equal measure on the other side. We as the sugarcane farmers and the newly minted chair of agriculture, the Senator for Bungoma will tell you, have complained for a very long time, Honorable Speaker, that for as long as you allow a wanton importation of sugar, you are hurting the local farmer in the sugarcane growing areas. You can see that the same is the situation, Honorable Speaker, now with wheat. I am quite surprised that Kenya would subscribe to such a situation where, Honorable Speaker, we have farmers in Narok whose crop is literally rotting in their stores, and yet we have allowed importation of sugar to this extent, Honorable Speaker. If you look at this legal notice that the Senator has brought, this is a copy of the East African Community Gazette, Honorable Speaker. And there is a legal notice here that has been signed by the Honorable Deng Alor Kwol, who was the chairperson Council of Ministers for the East African Community, Honorable Speaker, and is allowing, I think it's a total of how many? 3 million tons of wheat, Honorable Speaker. This is unacceptable. When we speak about these issues, Honorable Speaker, some people say, oh, we don't like certain individuals in certain offices. The Cabinet Secretary for Finance or Treasury is a former chairperson of ODM. Honorable Speaker, the ODM party, through the acting party leader, the Honorable Anyang' Nyong'o, issued a statement on this same issue about 2 weeks ago. And if he was a good man, he would have listened then. It wouldn't take the Senator for Narok to bring this matter before this House again, before it is resolved. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to stand with the Senator for Narok. I want to stand with the farmers in Narok. We must give priority to our own people when they are trying to get themselves out of the economic mess. You cannot have our own farmers produce rotting, and yet we are allowing importation of the same commodity which we have in plenty here. So this committee, Honorable Speaker, must have both the Cabinet Secretary responsible for agriculture and the Cabinet Secretary responsible for Treasury or Finance to appear before it and make sure that we put an end to this and we get explanations. And I'm also getting tired, Honorable Speaker, of explanations, because those farmers in Narok don't want an explanation. They want to be put in the right place in terms of compensation for what it is they have lost after putting their sweat in their land and, Honorable Speaker, being let down by their own government. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Senator for Nandi, let's speak for 3 minutes to allow as many to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Sir, mine is just a quick. You know, Mr. Speaker, maize farmers, we have been demonstrating for long. I thought the wheat farmers are better off, but it looks like whenever maize farmers speak, you must support us because we are in the same pot. In the cereals, Mr. Speaker, cereals, we must agree. As we are suffering, we didn't get the correct pricing in maize of 4,000 shillings, Mr. Speaker. And the sad reality of maize is that we sell at 90 kilos, while wheat is being sold at 50 kilos. I stand with the wheat farmers in Narok. I know they caused a lot of jam yesterday. I was worried for our colleagues, Ledama, but I'm happy he managed to pull through. Mr. Speaker, we must stop. I think Kenya National Trading Corporation, KNTC, must be called out. And AFA, who authorized importation of sugar, rice, maize, yet we are harvesting season, Mr. Speaker. This gazette notice must be degazetted by the Ministry of Treasury. And we expected Mbadi to do better, Mr. Speaker, by revoking most of those gazette notices. And it is good that Sifuna is here. He should advise him accordingly, Mr. Speaker. When we're having harvesting season, if it maize, if it anything, Mr. Speaker, we must stop importation. And finally, Mr. Speaker, while at it, the food security is a threat because we get subsidized fertilizer at 2,500. Mr. Speaker, at the moment, the seeds that we are supposed to go back to plant in this season is very high. And therefore, we want to ask the new chairman of agriculture, Wakoli, who has taken over, Mr. Speaker, to review, because how can you buy 2 kilos of seeds that at 700 shillings, Mr. Speaker, how many Kenyans can afford that? So we need to review so that we can protect our food security. I wish the wheat farmers all the best, and they have our unconditional support, Mr. Speaker, and I support the statement.
Senator Kavindu.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to comment on the statement for Senator Amida about mental health and suicidal cases, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, mental health is illness, is an illness like any other illness, Senator, and it should be treated.
Senator Kavindu, just a minute. That statement was raised pursuant to Standing Order 52, if I'm not mistaken. It does not attract comments from honorable senators. So either you pick the remaining two or you yield and allow another colleague to take to the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. But I wish you could allow me just to say something on this.
Conclude and...
Speaker.
Conclude.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, there is a lot of suicidal cases in almost all the counties, especially in a sub-county called Mwala in Machakos County. We have lost more than 20 youths by now, and this is an illness like any other. And I would request, Mr. Speaker, whoever is going to deal with this statement, they can also come up with a strategic plan that the counties must have centers for counseling for such patients. And these patients should be taken with kindness, and they should not be discriminated, even in families and in the society, because mental health is illness like any other illness. And there are so many people who are walking like they are normal, but they are suffering, and they are hiding because they cannot come out and say that I'm suffering mentally, because they are afraid, they are discriminated because of that. Mr. Speaker, even we should have funds set aside for counseling and talking to such people so that they can know that it's an illness like any other illness. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Senate Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to make a comment on this statement by Senator Ledama on the importation of wheat. We have just had our elections, and members are about to take over their responsibilities. Mr. Speaker, there must be a proper plan and guidance to the country. Although listening to many of my colleagues this afternoon, it is clear they do not understand that certain matters are beyond the reach of Kenya alone. Because the notice that Senator Ledama is referring to is an EAC regional notice for which Kenya is a signatory to. So it's not as simple as just having either a minister, council, or say this or the other. These are some of the things that we should perhaps be raising at the heads of state summit, considering that certain, Mr. Speaker, I don't mind being informed by...
Would you wish to be informed by Senator Ledama?
I don't mind, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, Majority Leader, for allowing me to inform you. The Council of Ministers, whose chairman is the current Cabinet Secretary in charge of Treasury in South Sudan, is comprised of Cabinet Secretaries of East Africa who deals with Treasury. So these are the members who go and sit together to agree on what will be zero-rated to allow millers to be able to import wheat. So what we would expect of our Cabinet Secretary, to be able to say, yes, we're in agreement with this. Mr. Chairman, you can sign this. However, mop up all the local produced wheat. So that is the issue here. Because this Cabinet Secretary of Treasury in Kenya can be able to say, because if you look at the list, and I'm happy to share with everyone, the legal notice, all these companies here are Kenyan companies. All of them are trading in Kenya. They are the millers, they are the local millers who are the ones who are buying. In fact, even to further add to the information, Tomorrow, we've been able to secure a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture because he too was not aware of this legal notice. So it's a matter of full disclosure and also taking into consideration the needs and interests of our people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you also for that additional information of the point. Actually, you agree with what I say, that this point is beyond Kenya alone making certain decisions. We know what we are good at and what we proceed. The point that I wanted to make, Senator Ledama, to you is that just as certain countries, for example, Tanzania, have excess production of maize, and you saw a press release the other day of how much, I think actually it was their president who was speaking, that they produced in anticipation that their traditional market, which is Kenya, will be available. Unfortunately, or fortunately to the Kenyan people, thanks to the overproduction on our side, that market is not available. What we expect from our cabinet ministers, and that's the point that I wanted to make before you volunteered additional information, is to bring this information to fore. However, Senator Ledama, there's a question also that we must ask ourselves. What is it that makes these millers prefer to bring wheat or whatever they're importing from out of the country in total disregard of locally available stocks? So that once that question is answered, we are able to help our farmers produce. Is it a question of quality? Is it a question of price? Is it a question, whatever the case might be, that makes our millers prefer imports from outside the country? I believe that it is possible for us as either policymakers or the legislators to find ways in which we can support our farmers, if it's an issue of quality, to produce to the kind of quality that the millers are looking for. If it's an issue of price, then to ensure that we are able to subsidize them to a point that they become competitive so that the millers can buy. Therefore, I do hope that our new Agriculture Committee will get to the full details of this particular issue so that we provide the right intervention that will ensure that the farmers get to enjoy the product of their sweat, and the millers also get product that is available to them at the right quantity, quality, and price. That is how a thriving economy works, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, over to the new Agriculture Committee with this new challenge that our country faces. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Faki.
Mheshimiwa Spika, asante kwa kunipa fursa hii kuchangia taarifa mbili ambazo zimeletwa na Senator Olekina pamoja na Senator Hamida. Tukianza na Senator Olekina, Mheshimiwa Spika, matatizo yaliyotokea kutokana na uagizaji kutoka nje wa zao la ngano imetokamana na kutokujua watu wetu katika Wizara ya Ukulima na vile vile pia katika Wizara ya Uhusiano wa Kimataifa, yale makubaliano yanayofanyika katika vikao vinavyofanyika kila mara kwa mara katika Jumuiya ya Afrika Mashariki. Mheshimiwa Spika, tukiangalia mara nyingi, Mheshimiwa Spika, yale yanayozungumzwa katika vikao vile hayafiki mashinani kwa wananchi, na nafikiri hiyo ni sababu moja inatakana kamati yetu inahusiana na masuala ya mambo ya nje na masuala ya ukulima yaweze kuingilia kati swala hili, kwa sababu mara nyingi wale wakulima wa nchi jirani wanajua masoko yao yako vipi, lakini wakulima wetu, Mheshimiwa Spika, hawana habari hizo. Ukiangalia kwa mfano sukari, mara nyingi huletwa sukari ya Komesa hapa wakati sisi tunao sukari yetu. Mahindi, mara nyingi mahindi yanatoka mpaka sehemu za Malawi kuingia Kenya, lakini mahindi yako mengi na sisi hatuwezi kununua kwa zile bei ambazo zinatolewa na serikali. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ipo haja ya hizi kamati zetu muhimu, na hivi sasa that he had people of Mombasa
take a date before electricity. That and these are 34 and 35.
Maybe then
Leonard Mama Mbotela hata kwenda nyumbani
because of the influential voice he had all over a while
mengi pale, kwa sababu alisema hasa sisi wa Kikuyu tuna ile shida ya maharaja. Aliweza kufafanua vile ambavyo ungeweza uweze kutoathiriwa na lugha ya mama, hiyo ndio maharaja. Naona seneta wa Mombasa ananiangalia. Kwa hivyo aliweza kuelezea vile ambavyo ungeweza kuongea lugha ya Kiswahili, na pengine nikamuiga na nikaweza kupata mambo mawili au matatu. Bwana Spika, nikimalizia nakumbuka vile ambavyo alikuwa akitoa taarifa zake, Bwana Spika, na vile alivyokuwa akiongea. Nakumbuka akisema vile ambavyo rais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya alipokuwa mwaka wa 1982, wakati yeye mwenyewe alipokuwa KBC na ama VOK, na vile alivyoshambuliwa, Bwana Spika, aliweza kusimulia, na ukisikia kisimulia ile hadithi, Bwana Spika, unaipenda, Bwana Spika. Kwa hivyo siku ya leo sisi tunamsherekea na tunamwenzi, pengine vile seneta wa Nandi alivyosema.
Senator Beatrice Ogola.
Honorable Speaker, I join my colleagues in celebrating the life of an illustrious career person in the media fraternity, the late Leonard Mbotela. We celebrate him because of the legacy he leaves behind, Honorable Speaker. We remain very proud of him. We thank God he lived up to the last years of his life, and we continue to condole with the family. As I celebrate him, Honorable Speaker, we celebrate him because of the influential voice he had all over in the radio. And along with him, we have had also influential voices like him, the late AJAABU, the late Senator Ben Oluoch Okello, who died while a member of the Senate. Honorable Speaker, we remain very proud of Mbotela. Each one of us at that point grew knowing that voice. Even when you are not very close to the radio, to the TV, you could identify the voice from very far, Honorable Speaker. And on the same note, Honorable Speaker, I celebrate some of the illustrious people we've had in my community, the late Owino Misiani, who was a singer, a musician, the late Oguta Bobo, the late Ayan Joey. A number of you might not have been part of the enjoyment our communities had over the musicians have been mentioned, but there were people that were common in the media then.